Hey guys, it's Coach Keefe here with the Athlete R&D Project. Today I want to get to the root of a question that I asked online last week, and that is, what is athleticism? Now last week I asked people to also answer and define what sport is and what athlete is, as well as athleticism, and I got a lot of varying definitions. Some were very personal, some were very specific, some were very broad, a lot of different answers here. There were common themes that I could pick up on this stuff, which was really good, but then there were also things that were just very spread apart or didn't really define anything. They were just sort of a response. And so I want to take the time to really get to the root of defining what athleticism is. What I don't want to do, but it is kind of important to understand, is get into the frivolous argument of what is a sport and what is an athlete. I think for the most part, most people do define sport very consistently, and that would be a competitive physical event that has a clear winner or loser to it. Now, athlete, you would put into a sport, right? So anybody who participates in a sport would be an athlete. However, are all athletes using or utilizing athleticism for their sport? Okay, so this takes us into defining athleticism. Like I said, many people define this very differently. I would say out of the three, sport, athlete, and athleticism seemed to have the most varying responses. There was no clear definition from a population standpoint. Okay, so this is how I define athleticism. It is the expression of fitness qualities at the highest level of human abilities in the most optimal manner. And that sounds like a mouthful right there. Let's kind of dissect this. Expression of fitness qualities. Okay, physical fitness, that is important. You have to have high levels of physical fitness to express athleticism. Okay. There are certain qualities within physical fitness that will lead into higher levels of athleticism at the highest level of human abilities. Okay, so if we're thinking of human abilities, run, jump, throw, those are things that I define as innate human abilities. Okay, and when I say run, I also mean cut, change of direction, things like that. Those forms are of the highest level of athleticism, in my opinion, in the most optimal manner. Of course, some people can have high level fitness qualities, do them at high level abilities, but they don't do it optimally. And this will be highlighted a little bit more clearly when I get into the components of athleticism. Now, this is also context specific, okay? So if we in the next segment where I define the components of athleticism, we'll see that the sports or activities that require the most of those components, in my opinion, are on the one end of the spectrum, the highest end of the spectrum of athleticism. The ones that either require a low level of those components of athleticism or only some of them or a singular amount of them are of the lower end of the athleticism spectrum, okay? However, there's a clear defined line that will determine whether something really needs athletic development or not, okay? So an example could potentially be speed walking. In the Olympics, there is a sport called speed walking. Now, I hope nobody jumps on my back about this and jumps in and says this is an extremely athletic sport. I have no idea. I walk every single day, but I've never walked competitively, okay? So it's important to understand how many qualities within speed walking are really necessary to develop athleticism. I'm not really sure 100%, but I am going to still use this as an example. I would say that there's an insignificant amount of athletic qualities that make you a competitive speed walker. Same thing with the arm wrestling example. If you're an arm wrestler, you're not really developing a lot of athletic qualities. You might have to develop fitness qualities or use fitness qualities, but not athletic qualities. So now that brings us to the components of athleticism. This is really what's going to make it a little bit more clear of what athletic qualities are necessary for athleticism, okay? So here's a list. I'm just gonna get right into it. This is my list. This is what I think of in terms of what, if I watched athletes or if I watched people doing athletic endeavors, what things am I looking at that would say that person's really athletic and that person isn't, or that person has some athleticism or something? It kind of helps me understand where they fall on the spectrum of athleticism, okay? So I'm just gonna read them out here. We have speed, coordination, fundamental human movement, agility, mobility, perceptual motor skills, motor control, perception action coupling. All of these things are what help me determine what what athleticism really is. Okay, so let's kind of run through these very quickly. I'm not going to spend too much time on it in this video. Speed, everyone knows what speed is. Things done at speed, skills done at speed are things that are very athletic and require a high amount of athleticism because you need a lot of coordination. Okay, a squat requires a certain level of coordination to be as strong as you possibly could be. Same thing to speed, but because of the speed of sprinting as fast as you possibly can or changing direction or whatnot, the coordination factor is much higher. Muscle sequencing and firing rates and things like that need to happen at the most optimal time. Okay, mobility, obviously very important there. People who are very mobile are very athletic. Just think of people who are very stiff. They might have all these other qualities, but if they're really, really bad with mobility, they look non-athletic, right? And they tend to produce lower than high levels of athletic performance. Motor control, your ability to control your body, okay, through various movements and ranges of motion. This also couples with mobility here, okay? Agility, your ability to react to certain things and stay up to speed with them. So you could think of like trying to beat a defender, or if you're a defender trying to contain an offensive player, your change of direction abilities while... Sorry, video got cut off there and I didn't realize it, so I'm going to pick back up with agility. Yeah, being able to react to another player with good change of direction abilities, which require a lot of speed to that, okay? And then just to finish these off, perceptual motor skills. Those are going to be your visual skills, your auditory skills, your feeling, your proprioceptive, kinesthetic awareness, a bunch of skills right there that will help improve, or actually are necessary for athleticism. And then this last one here, it doesn't get talked about enough still, but I am starting to see a lot more coaches implement these strategies into their athletic coaching programs. Perception action coupling, it's just the concept of how an environment will change a human behavior, which then will in turn affect the environment in this back and forth coupling action of changing in an emerging environment. So think of sport, right? The way that the environment of the field or the game of play is happening will affect my behavior of how I'm starting to act on it, and then my actions on it will in turn elicit a change of the environment, and that just constantly happens back and forth. And there's actually skills that can go into developing athleticism within that. Okay, so to finish up here, let's also go over qualities that are not really defined as athleticism, or they are fitness qualities that also are not defined for athleticism. Okay, so let's just go over these real quick. Strength, power, cardio, balance, aesthetics, flexibility, endurance, stability. Now you might be wondering, yeah, people who are athletic possess all of these. Yes, that's because these are things that you would use to develop higher levels of athleticism that I put into the component section on the last board. For you to be very fast, or to have high sprinting speed, or to be able to jump really high, you need to have good strength and power. However, again, like I said before, people who are very strong and powerful aren't always athletic, okay? So I don't really define these as being very athletic, okay? You use these as a means to become athletic, okay? So you use these to improve your speed, okay? Cardio or endurance, your energy system capacity, we could say, if you want to put it that way, or just your cardiovascular fitness. That's not a quality of athleticism, but this is a quality that we use in training to help build into athleticism, okay? Stability, flexibility, those things aren't necessary for somebody to be athletic, okay? But we can use them as training qualities or fitness qualities in an athletic program. And then aesthetics. There's varying looks to an athletic body, okay? But not everybody looks like a jacked person who is an athlete. There are plenty of people who display all of the qualities that I put, or the components that I put in the components of athleticism bucket, that don't have the aesthetics that you're probably picturing in my mind. So, or in your mind. For an example, I'm not, again, this isn't meant to be offensive, but bodybuilding to me is not an athletic endeavor, okay? It doesn't possess really any of the other components of athleticism other than potentially motor control, Okay, they have really good motor control so they can get quality contractions in the exact targeted muscle group that they want when they're training. Okay, to stand on stage, you have to be able to contract and get into positions. I would say that one thing does lend itself to athleticism, but if you look at the large spectrum of what athleticism requires, it's very low, pretty close to insignificant. It's just a separate thing. It doesn't have to be everybody is either an athlete or not, and if you're an athlete, you're a great person. And if you're not an athlete, then you're a shitty person on earth. It just means that it doesn't require athletic qualities. So these components right here are things that we could use to develop athleticism, but they aren't athleticism within itself, because there are plenty of people who may acquire or already have these components or these qualities, but aren't athletic at all. And you can see it by watching them play sport. Okay, guys, now that we have defined athleticism, we've labeled the components of athleticism, we've also clearly defined what isn't athleticism, what is. Now we can get into developing athleticism and what goes into that. So stay tuned for the next video.